Welcome to episode 10 of the Wrassingh Show. This is part 2 of our interview with the incredible Beautiful Bruiser, Molly Spartan. So if you haven't checked out part 1 of our interview, head over to episode 9 of the Wrassingh Show before tuning in back to this episode. And now, without wasting any more time, I present to you Molly Spartan.
Molly, has it ever happened that you had to share the ring with a very unsafe worker? Has it ever happened to you?
So far, I've been pretty good. So far, I've not actually dealt with anybody super unsafe. Things have happened that maybe timing wasn't right and stuff, but it was always you were able to find the sort of the reason. I mean, I'm very open to say that it very rarely happens in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
There's very rare times that it happens here because everybody's linked, and it's such a small place that you can say where's you train? Oh, so and so's there, or even you could ask somebody else. So there's been times where I've been in a car with people, and it's been 3 different schools in one car to a show. And if somebody was to say to me, oh, where does she train with? I can go, oh, she trains with blah, 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 blah. And she trains with, you know what I mean? And they can say, oh, she's at this one. So it's not hard to find out where people train. It's more when you go, I've heard stories about friends from America who have ended up being in a ring with somebody and they've realised you have no clue what you're doing. People get lost. I'm not gonna there's been times where I've been in matches myself, locked out with somebody and went, I have no idea what we're doing. Let's figure this out. And it's fine. And sometimes that's part of training. There's amounts of times where I've been in training and they went, right, you in the ring, 6 minutes, listen for your time cues. Okay, and you just need to feel it out and wrestle a match.
Yeah.
And figure out how to talk to one another and stuff like that. So that's fine. But you learn how to do that at training, so that if there are points where you're I have no idea what's going on, or if something bad's happened, how do we just grab somebody, keep a hold, and then do what you need to do? Where in America, I've heard stories of friends being in rings and they've been in a 3-way and they realise this lassie's not got a Scooby what's going on. She's clearly just watched Raw and her dad's made her, you know what I mean? She's been doing finishing moves on her dad, but she doesn't actually have a clue what to do. And and it's even small things where do you tuck your foot and how do you, you know what I mean? What's the things that you learn if you go to a school? They're really hard to explain, not normal people, but when you actually know what's going on, it's so all right, okay. But yeah, it's I think it's more an issue sort of stateside because there's so many wee areas and things like that. You do occasionally get somebody that you're oh, you don't know. And it's also the idea of well, if I put them in with that person, that's who they learn. And you go, no, that's not how you learn. You learn your basics and you learn to get better when you get in the ring with other people. And you learn different perspectives and stuff. But so far I've not, I've been in a couple of dodgy rings where maybe there's not, there's been a couple of times where I've been in a ring and someone's been hit and I've all of a sudden just went, oh, I think the pad had moved. That was bold and that was my head. But it's never been with the person in the ring. I've always been able to and even then, if I've ever been in somebody that's really unexperienced, it's just the idea of don't be a show off. Just keep it simple. Mm-hmm. Get them through, and if you keep it that way, then it all works out fine.
Beautiful. So, Molly, speaking of safety, you recently have been appointed by the TNT Extreme Wrestling promotion as a safeguarding officer. And this, of course, was something that was done due to the tremendous speaking out movement. So can you tell us a little about your perspective on this whole speaking out movement and, of course, about the job title that you currently hold at TNT Extreme?
I mean, of course, the speak out movement is something that is needed to be done. There is the idea of, it's a weird sort of thing because I think the public perceive that everybody knew everything, and that is no way, shape, of course, in no way, shape or form the case. there's a lot of big revelations and shocks that have happened throughout this that you all of a sudden go, wait, what was happening? Why has this never been addressed? With the TNT thing, I mean, in all honesty, it came up with TNT. The TNT locker room, to me, has always been safe for their female talent. Like, as I said before, they've always made sure that there is a female locker room and a male locker room. They are divided somehow. Even if there's only 2 girls on a show, they'll have their own space. And it's always been that. And one of the major things for me, especially TNT, is the fact that girls aren't outnumbered. Like, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing, and this isn't like a jab at any other promotion or things like that, but there's a lot of places that you go to that some promotions only have their one girl, and then they bring in other girls to wrestle her. And that's not like, I'm not saying that's wrong or anything like that in any way, shape or form. Sometimes that's just how it is. Sometimes you only have one girl for your I've been the one girl in a wrestling school before. It's not an unreasonable thing to have. But at TNT, there's a women's roster. So, like, the last show I was at, there was all the original She-Wolf. So there was me, Casey Owens, Lana Austin, Rio. Then there was the Medusa Complex, which is Charlie Evans and Millie McKenzie. There was TNT Women's Champ Lizzie Evo. There was also a match beforehand with Gia Adams and Angel Hayes. So there was 9 women in the locker room that one night. The last show that we were ever at, there was 9 women in the locker room, which is not a thing, like really any place else. Yeah. And it's always been the case there that we've always wanted to make sure that everybody had their voice. Everybody has their voice there. Everybody feels safe there to the best. Because quite honestly, if anything happened to any of the lasses there, they'd have me to deal with. And that's always been the case. So although me and Casey were appointed the TNT safeguard officers there, I think it was predominantly because we already kind of were before the movement happened. Right. So that's why we got appointed it. But at the same time, we're in no way, like, if, for example, the company decided that they wanted to do it with someone outside of wrestling rather than somebody. So I get there's a lot of comments I've seen a lot, not directed at us, but I have seen a lot of comments about people that should come in and safeguard things shouldn't be connected with the wrestling. Okay. And I completely understand their point of view in that sense. With TNT, with us, it was more the fact that it was already a thing there. Like, none of the story, like, you know, like, there's not any stories where the girl's happening at TNT because it doesn't, like, just doesn't happen. Well, I'm not saying it doesn't happen there. If anything came out that it happened there, of course it would be dealt with. But at the same time, like, I think the locker room there is a safe place, and it is a place that we can talk and we can put our ideas across as well. That's for me, it's a massive thing with TNT. Is I feel like there, as a performer, I'm heard. So if I have an idea or I have any sort of thing to put forward, I am listened to, and I'm able to do that, which I think a lot of places, not just for girls, there's a lot of places where they don't feel like they really have that power to do so, even though they're the performer. Sometimes your job is to go there and just do as you're told. This is what your job is, this is the storyline, this is that. And that's all smashing and great, but there's some places that you can put, and there's other places that I've worked for that you can put ideas forward. FutureShock was one that I worked with. I was actually champion there, and they were a massive part of Molly Spartan becoming Molly Spartan. And like at that point, it was like Chris Booker and Sam Bailey and stuff were running there, and they were great. Like, they would listen as well if you had any ideas. And yes, sometimes they didn't like your idea, and that's perfectly fine. Like, if I put an idea forward and it's crap and you think it's crap, tell me you think it's crap. It's fine. I'm a big girl. I'll have a rethink. But to be heard is a massive thing, and I feel like there as a performer you can be heard. But at the same time, if the TNT management were to turn around to me and say, look, we're going to get a governing body from outside, me and Casey will be perfectly fine with that as well. They asked us because they felt like it was already a job we were doing before any of this happened in TNT, and I'll happily continue it. And it will be something that even if I've not got the official title of safeguard officer, I will be there for any performer, male or female, if any of them have any, if they feel unsafe, if they feel they are uncomfortable in any way, shape or form, be it from a fan or be it for a member of the management or from the wrestling roster, I will more than happily sit and listen to them and try and help them the best that I can. And that's just as me, not safety guard officer. It's been a title we've been given because we were already doing it. But at the same time, if the title is no longer an official thing, it's not going to stop me trying to look out for everybody.
That's great.
And it's the same for Casey.
But Molly, like TNT has done a tremendous job, as I can say. Do you also expect more promotion to follow suit and have safeguarding officials of their own in the future?
I mean, I think it's something that needs to be looked into and addressed. It's one of those things where there needs to be some place that people can go to without judgment. And that's a massive thing because, like sometimes it's very difficult. And it's very difficult to speak out about something that you think might affect your future, which is probably what a lot of the fear is. I mean, I myself have experienced sort of sexual assault, and in all honesty, it's one of those things where I think a lot of women have, and it's all to do with how certain people deal with things, and it's everything from I'm very much a direct person. The one time I ever had an interaction at TNT specifically was with a fan, and it was a fan that had went over we were at the merch table, went over and asked me, basically he was like, I want to mud wrestle you and tear your clothes off and stuff. But for me, my instant reaction was to tell him that he was lucky there was a table between us, or I'd be throwing him out by his balls myself. And I just straight up humiliated him in front of everybody, and it became I remember the TNT man instantly going are you okay? I've just heard this happen, and I'm like, I'm fine, everything's fine, he's been dealt with. And they went through their photos and made sure that guy was never allowed back in and stuff, but I dealt with it. But I'm able, from being a bit older and dealing with scumbags who think that's suitable and all right to do, I've learned my way of dealing with things, and that's how I deal with things that are happening personally to me. I deal with it there and then, but it takes a long time to realise that, and a lot of the girls that were affected were very young, and were easily manipulated. Not that I'm saying they were daft little lassies, they were easily manipulated because of the power construct, and a lot of guys took they realised they had a bit of power and they used that to manipulate someone who was just young and really just thought somebody was looking out for them. And that's what's sickening and disgusting. And I think there needs to be something in place that can't happen again. And if it is happening, that we can report it and something can be done, even if it's not to a safeguard office, even if it's to even officially as a police. If you see someone who is a coach or someone who is training those who are younger, manipulating younger folk, there needs to be something in place in order for that to stop. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to get, promotions are going to look into finding something to prevent this sort of stuff from happening. But yeah, it's still a very complex scenario because it needs to be brought in an official capacity that something can be actually done.
Honestly, it's very hard for me to talk about this as well, because when I talk about these performers who abuse the women, it's almost a very inhumane thing to do. I can't imagine a man or anyone abusing somebody, taking advantage. I mean, it's a fellow human that you're doing it to, somebody who has a family, who has a life, who has an identity. And when you do something like that, you just take that away from them. It's ridiculous.
It's a weird sort of thing because I think it depends on the level of abuse. Like someone manipulating the power that they have is yeah, it's just disgusting. Yeah. But then there's this kind of like I think the guy that came towards me at TNT, he in his right mind thought that was acceptable behavior. Like I once completely smashed a phone because when I was at a bar, a guy just grabbed my behind and I could see in the mirror, like, that's not my partner. And I turned around to slap him, but had my phone like that in my hand and hit him with it. And when he went, I remember he went and he was like, "Oh, yeah, bitch," to me. And I was like, "You smashed my phone." And the security there, and honestly, the nightclub we were in, the security grabbed him and chucked him. And that wasn't the problem. But it was the fact that for some reason, there are people that believe that that's how you get a woman. That's the behavior that you need to do in order to attract someone or to transfer luck, which to the average person is not, when you think about it, you're like, that's twisted and so wrong. But that's one of the things. And I think with this movement, there's a lot of people also getting educated that this sort of behavior isn't acceptable and this sort of behavior isn't something that you should be doing. And hopefully that teaches younger trainees as well, like sending unsolicited pictures, sending like inappropriate messages or pinching somebody's bum or things like that. If it's not welcome and it's not like, if you don't have consent for it, you don't do it.
It's horrible. A lot of names popped up in this whole movement, and I was honestly taken aback when I saw some of the names. We had people, like from all sort of lives. We had, Jim Cornette, who is not even a wrestler. His name popped up. We had Joey Ryan. His name popped up. You don't have to answer this, but was there one specific talent whose name popped up and you were literally taken aback, like you would have never expected his name to have appeared in such a thing? You don't have to answer it.
I think it's difficult because there's a lot of things where a lot of people, even when you've seen their names pop up and you didn't really know them, it was more the fact on a lot. I think, in all honesty, all of the names that came up. And I think the problem being was there was a lot of names that were popped up that simply, it's such a difficult thing because there are those who have been severely affected by this and who are speaking out in order to make change for the future, not for themselves because they are dealing with the abuse that they've had, but there are those who are trying to change it for those coming up, for the next generation of girls coming up to never have to deal with that.
Right.
But then there was obviously the cases that were coming up where it was clear that it wasn't, it's weird. There was a lot of things that were coming up where you can see there was like false allegations, or it was to do with, it was very much an axe to grind rather than this is what happened to me and this needs dealt with. So it's but the list, like it got to a point where the list was so massive that you couldn't keep taking it in. But no, I think all names that came up were a shock because you've got guys, there's so many of them that came up that you were like, oh, I've shared locker rooms with him. And although nothing ever happened to you personally, the idea of they accepted that behaviour was acceptable is the hard one.
There's hope because we came from a generation where, abuse, you can say exploitation of women was in the ring, and now that has faded away, and now women are actual wrestlers. And now there is a hope in all of you, in the women of wrestling today who are fighting this back. And I'm sure that, in the future, we will have a wrestling industry which will be totally safe for both men and women and people of all sexual orientations. So let's hope for that.
I mean, the good thing is the people there are individuals that I know who were falsely accused or were dealing with, say, an ex-partner who were grinding an axe. Anybody that I personally know that was dealing with it have all done the right things by going to the police or seeking legal advice. And the problem with that is when you're seeking that sort of thing, it's very hard to discuss because you're advised you shouldn't discuss because it can be deemed as abuse to that person. So yeah, it's not something. So behind the works, we all sort of know what's actually happening. So those who have been abusers are getting dealt with correctly, and those who have been falsely accused are also dealing with things in the correct manner. Because quite frankly, if you have absolutely nothing to hide and you're telling the truth, that's what's all going to come out at the end.
Sure. Absolutely, I agree with you. Well, things are getting a little serious, so let's switch gears and let me put on my shades back and let's talk about some fun, all right? So since it's been, I mentioned 2016, so 2016, 2020, it's been about 4 years since you've dominated the UK, wrestling scene. I'm going to ask you 4 rapid, fire round questions, and they're going to be based on 4. They're going to be very quick, very snappy, and you just have to answer them very quickly. All right, so here we go.
I'm sorry.
All right, so number 1. 4 things that you would do if you were Vince McMahon.
I mean, he's given the title to Drew, so I can't ask him to do that. He's done that.
Okay.
I would. I was Vince McMahon. What would I do? I would 100% go into a feud with Kevin Owens because he is the new Stone Cold Steve Austin. If it's not him, then it should be maybe Triple H should have a proper McMahon Austin feud with Owens and Triple H instead.
Never thought of it, but that would be amazing. Jesus.
So I'd do that. I would.
It's hard to
be. Man, it's so difficult to go. What do I want to see? I would make Shayna Baszler a champ. I don't care which one. She's incredible and gives me the absolute fear. And that's why I love her, because I see her and go, oh, Jesus Christ. Love her. And make Shayna Baszler a champ.
I hate the fact that, she's being called out by the community and by the so-called wrestling journalist as not being able to fit in the mold. I hate that. They're just...
She's incredible. She's terrifying. She is.
I don't understand what the problem is there. People see something odd, but what is it? She's a monster in the ring.
Yeah. I think it's because she's not conventionally what they'd expect a performer to be. But that's the whole... she's incredible. She gets the job done. She looks scary. She looks like a bad guy in a movie, to me. Yeah. She looks like she'd either be... Yes. Remember in Deadpool? I think if she was Angel Dust, she was that. She'd be perfect for that. She looks like she'd be a Marvel bad guy or a Bond bad guy.
Right.
She's the best.
Yeah.
Absolutely gives me the fear.
Yeah.
I would...
You got one last thing.
I've got what? I thought I had 4.
Yeah, but you already said 3, so one more, right?
What did I say? What were my 3?
You said 3. You said Baszler, you said Kevin Owens, and the first one.
What did I say?
You said Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens. Triple H. You said Shayna Baszler. Yeah, so that's 3.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, you
that's 2.
Sorry, I'm bad. I was always bad. I just embarrassed myself. I'm gonna cut this part out of the interview. I'm joking. I won't.
I said 2.
Yeah.
I would. Who do I want to see? I would. Oh my God, it's so hard. Try to think who's on there. Oh, eventually get when on earth is Bailey and Sasha going to feud?
I see. Okay.
But that's everybody. But I also think that is also genius to make it a slow burn. So that's eventually going to come, and when it does, the wrestling community will melt into a puddle, and it's going to be great. I would bring WrestleMania to Glasgow and Hampden just so Drew can be there to do the WrestleMania in Hampden, Glasgow. That's what I'd do. I was Vince McMahon.
Wow. You know what? When I realized that you had 2 wishes left, and I thought that you would probably wish that I'm going to hire myself and I'm going to hire you, but you didn't say that. I'm kind of offended by that, but that's okay.
Hey, you got to work for it. I'll get there when they want me there, and when I get there on my talent, I'm just going to just be like, right, hire Molly Spartan. Cool. Like, I'll get there on my talent. But no, if it was actually to do it, if all of a sudden you were to change places and they were like, right, you're Vince McMahon now, I'd be like, right, Shayna would become a champ. WrestleMania would happen in Glasgow.
Yeah.
Owens Triple H is an Austin McMahon feud. Right. And I said Bayley and Sasha, but that's going to happen.
Okay.
I would. It's going to make me. I'm going to end up thinking of a 4th thing eventually, and then I'll be like, this should happen.
I love that.
Anyway, other questions.
You know, while talking to you, I don't feel like I'm talking to just a wrestler. I feel like I'm talking to a fan, which makes this interview so much more fun. It's incredible. Okay.
I don't care what anybody says. When seeing wrestlers talk about how they have an issue with marks, like they love the term marks, like, right. And I'm like, wait a minute. We're wrestlers. We're the biggest marks of them all. We loved wrestling that much. We went and learned how to do it. Don't be calling them marks. We are them too.
I love that. So this one's easy. 4 reasons why you love to be a wrestler. Why you're so grateful to be a wrestler.
The meeting new people, like always meeting new walks of life. I've genuinely made some of my best friends during wrestling, and they're from all over the world. Like, especially with the pandemic happening, just reaching out to people and showing your support, and folk just checking in on me, seeing how I'm doing. It's quite nice. Traveling the world. I've managed to visit lots of different countries. Like my last wrestling match before the lockdown was in Germany, which was great. Which is great because for some reason, after my match, one of the guys in the show went and bought me a box of chicken nuggets.
Oh, really?
That was standing there for a box of chicken nuggets. It was great. Right. Travel the world, meet new people.
Yeah.
Also, like, especially when I do like the inside the rope stuff as well, is being able to like meet. Not saying like meet fans, like not when I'm saying like meet fans, I'm not saying like meet my fans. I mean just fans of wrestling in general. Being in a room of people that completely love the thing that you love as well. Right. So like if I was wearing somebody's t-shirt, for example, they can be like, oh, I have that t-shirt too. And you'll be like, oh, I got mine's here. And so being able to like be in a bubble of people who have the same sort of mindset as you is great.
I love that too. Like I can tell you, I love, whenever there's wrestling happening at Barclays Center, I always take the train back home. And the reason I do is because when you're on the train and when you're a train full of wrestling fans, it's like you're making so many more friends. It's incredible. Yeah. And that's what the beauty of wrestling is. It's incredible. I agree with you. I even
remember being like in New York for Mania last year.
Oh, you were there?
Yeah, I was there too. So I love ice hockey as well, not just wrestling. Massive ice hockey fan. And my team is the Chicago Blackhawks. Like NHL team is Chicago Blackhawks. And I remember standing in the subway station, and across the subway station, there was other wrestling fans, but one of them was a Tampa Bay Lightning fan, and he was like, "Boo!" And we crossed, and I was like, "Are you booing me?" And he was like, "Yeah," but then realising like we're wrestling fans. "You been to this?" Yeah, I'm going to this bar. Right, we'll see you. And I actually ended up like over a track discussing how we were going to go to this bar. And like I ended up, a guy called Taylor, me and my friend Fiona, we went to the Madison Square Garden like ROH New Japan show. And it was incredible. And we went and there was this guy sitting beside us called Taylor, who was by himself. And like through the Jay White Okada match, like we were team Jay White, even though like he ended up losing, we were like, go Jay, and everybody around us were team Okada, and like we ended up but we're still friends with him. Like we still chat online, and like we ended up going to this bar in Manhattan with him because like we were going to this bar, watch someone on like some wrestling show, and like we ended up in the street being like, Taylor, and he was like, ow, and we ended up going to this bar with him, and then we still kept in touch and stuff. So like, yeah, it's a massive thing. It's not just meeting, like, it's incredible meeting somebody who's a fan of yourself. Yep. Like the work that you're putting in and stuff like that. People actually, the concept of somebody watching you is like, what? You actually pay attention to me? That's incredibly cool. But at the same time, just going to wrestling and being with people that have the same mindset. But you also get super. I remember being really ill on a tour, and I posted out a photo and being like, I might look nice, but thank God for makeup because I feel like death. And like the next day, the next show, somebody showed up with, like a guy showed up and he had his wee Ziploc bag, and I had like a bar of Galaxy chocolate. I collect Funko Pops. I collect pops, so I'm a big toy. Like I've painted a bedroom as the Toy Story wall because I'm a toy collector and a massive nerd. Like he showed up with that, and I had pin badges in it, and like a pop figure. I think I got a Kenny Omega pop figure and things like that. And it was just like, I hope you feel better. And I was like, oh my God, that's so nice. But it's just that like community that comes with it. And yeah, every community has a few dickheads in it that's going to flip the table and have them on. But the majority of people are sound, and that's kind of it. And hopefully,
yep. I know.
Travel the world, made some of my best friends, met like-minded people, and also getting to see some really cool wrestling. That's the best thing about being a wrestler. Like being creative myself, getting my creative juices out and trying to like help other people with theirs, but being able to just constantly be at wrestling shows and seeing some really cool wrestling. I've seen loads and loads and loads of absolute killer matches that some people won't ever see, and it breaks my heart because I was like, that was cool. So yeah, getting to see some really cool wrestling, making some of my best friends in the world, meeting folk, and yeah, traveling the world. I love travel.
Right. Molly, off the record, I said that this was going to be a very brief interview, but talking to you has been such a joy that it's actually been over an hour. I hope that you're fine. Are you running short of time? You okay?
No, all right. I'm fine.
All right. So I'm going to just ask you this. You said that you were at WrestleMania 35. I have to ask because I was there too. And, you know, I've attended wrestling events, but my experience at WrestleMania 35 for a reason was much different. Where were you sitting when you were there? Were you sitting with the fans or were you sitting with the staff?
Oh no, I was sitting with friends.
With the friends. That's great because I got a seat where the floor seats, like not ringside seats, but the floor seats which are behind the ringside, they occupy one space which is just for like the staff. And I was sitting there, and it was boring because when you're sitting with the staff, they're not fans, they're just staff and families of staff. So when you're sitting there, like Miz just put Shane McMahon through a table or something like that, and everybody's cheering, and these people are sitting there. And I'm like, okay. So when
that is like a curse of wrestling. That's a curse for wrestling because there's so many, like, sitting with wrestlers, like, sometimes is painful because it's not that they're not loving what's happening. They're just evaluating everything of going like, his hand went there and that went here and this is how that worked. And I'm guilty of that, but when I go to wrestling, I'm actively asked, like, can I go with Kenny and Ollie and like my pals so I can be like, ah!
Right. I wanted to be that too. But, sitting with them, I was like, I want to mark out, but I don't want to look like a total illiterate. So I'm not. So I was sitting very quietly.
I got to a point, I was at NXT TakeOver Blackpool. Okay. And we were sitting with all the press. Right. And eventually my mate, Kenny and Ollie, they were press. But eventually they just looked and went, sack this, and we were like, yes, and we're going mental over everything. to a point where like other press guys started joining in because they were like, I'm so glad that you did that because we feel like we need to behave. When really it's this ridiculousness of like, so you think Triple H is going to say, I'm sorry, you can't come back for enjoying his show? No, if you enjoy it, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were like, we were at the end of the press row and being there and just like, yes, and stuff. And they started doing it. So other people joined in too. And like this section of press was like, thanks for making this fun. And I was like, it's cool.
That's great. Okay, I'll move on to the next question now. What are the 4 match types that you would love to participate in that you haven't tried out so far?
Oh, this sounds insane, but as a fan, I'd love to do like a TLC purely because I'm a massive Edge and Christian fan. And that's like, so like I'm a massive Edge fan, and my tag partner, Casey, she's a Hardy Boys fan. Like we were at Mania that they returned back in Orlando, like 33, right. And she was there and just instantly started crying. There's just photo of me hugging her, and she's just like, in the photo. So she's a massive. So we always say that I'm the Matt to her Jeff, and she's the Christian to my Edge.
I see.
Kind of thing. So that's us. So I'm thinking like the pair of us would be like, sick, let's do this. But it would be terrifying. Yeah, so I'd love a TLC. Yeah. I probably would cool with like TNT are doing like an all women's deathmatch tournament next year supposedly, depending on how coronavirus goes. So I'll probably join in that, but I am terrified. Don't know. I like getting creative with stuff and sort of trying new things.
Yeah.
You start thinking about what match types there are. Probably just a classic tables match. Just constantly trying to get somebody through a table would be class. You know what? I'd even probably try just so I can up my game on the sort of kind of wrestling. I'd probably like a submission match. So you've got to try and find a way to submit, like an I Quit match kind of thing.
Right.
I think I'd probably thrive as well on like a last woman standing match too.
I mean, yes,
I get quite creative and I'm happy to go into a crowd. So I'd probably do okay with that. But in all honesty, I'll give anything a go. Like it doesn't really matter. Like there's certain things I'd like to try because the fangirl in you goes, I want to do a TLC match because I want to be like, yeah, like I want the moment of like, I want the Edge and Christian on a table, wedged between 2 ladders, holding up the title kind of thing. That's the kind of vision. I was like, I want to be Edge, but that's just the fangirl in me being like, I want to be my favorite wrestler.
I really want to see you and Casey in a TLC match on my television screen. I can't wait to see that. I really, really hope that it happens. That would be a big money match, I can tell you that. Wow.
That would be great.
I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
But yeah, I'm genuinely like, I love wrestling and I love trying new things and trying to think how to creatively give something a new spin. Maybe even like the old idea, like old thing, getting a new sort of twist to it as well.
Right.
So my brain's always going, but beautiful. I'm happy to give anything a go. So book me and just tell me what I'm doing, and I'll give it a
perfect.
Gosh darn hard try.
Perfect. So now the 4th question and the last question. If you had 4 wishes, what would they be? Any 4 wishes? Yeah, 4.
I'd want equality for everybody, which I think is something that should be happening. I think that just doesn't matter background or anything. If you're doing the same job as somebody else, you get the same wages, you get the same respect, you get the same everything. So equality throughout, not just wrestling, in every aspect. to stay, for everybody in my matches, to stay fit and healthy, and there never to be any injuries, which also means we can have some mad, crazy matches and nobody gets hurt. That'd be great. For everybody that for everybody that's helped me and that I care about in wrestling, to be happy with their career when they decide it's done. To be happy with what they've done. And fourthly, just to have fun. It doesn't have to always be so serious. Use it as a tool in order to provoke change for serious matters. But enjoy yourself and have fun with what you're doing, because at the end of the day, we're wrestling and we all love wrestling, and we have loved it from if you got into it when you were a wee kid and your dad showed it to you on the telly, or if you got it to it when you were in college or university because your flatmate decided really, really, really loved The Rock. Enjoy it. Get into it. Lose yourself. But I just wish people would just take the safety of it seriously. Take the art form seriously. Perform it seriously. But at the end of the day, just have fun with it, because then no matter what happens, at least you enjoyed yourself.
Beautiful. I don't know what is it, but every British wrestler that I've had the privilege of interviewing, I've seen that all of them are so humble and it's just so nice. It's incredible.
Oh, nice.
I said that was going to be my last question, but I'm a little curious guy, so I have one more question for you.
Okay.
Is ice hockey your favorite sport apart from wrestling, or is there something else?
Oh no, ice hockey. It's either professional wrestling and ice hockey. So, I absolutely adore ice hockey. So, growing up where I'm from, there's a place called Kirkcaldy in Fife, and they were the first ever ice hockey team in the UK. They brought ice hockey over from Canada. So it's kind of a sport from where I'm from. And they're the Fife Flyers. I'm a big Fife Flyers fan. And then obviously the NHL was where it's sort of serious. I'm a Chicago Blackhawks fan there. I love it. What's not to love? It's fast paced.
Yeah.
It's done in an hour, so 20 minutes. And it's grown men sometimes having a fight on ice with blades on their feet. It's mental. If you broke it down to what things can happen in ice hockey, can easily be related to wrestling. And I've said that, I was if you're a wrestling fan, you should watch ice hockey as your sport.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If you like hockey, you're probably going to like wrestling. I absolutely love hockey.
And the reason why I asked you that question is because your real life tag team partner, who also happens to be the NXT UK tag team champion, Wolfgang Young, he proposed to you, at a Glasgow Clan game. So how was that moment? That must have been so incredible.
Yeah, Glasgow Clan are the rivals to Fife Flyers. That's the rival team. He proposed to me at a game. It was a New Year's Hogmanay game, and it came out of nowhere. We were on, and he surprised me at first saying we were doing the puck drop. So it's a ceremony thing, you drop the puck, and that was a surprise. And then he proposed, and I laughed in his face because I was like, "What are you doing?" But I was like, "Yeah, of course, yeah, that's all good." I got him into hockey, which I love the fact that he's now become the hockey guy. He appeared on NXT with a hockey jersey on once, and people were like, "Oh, he's on a hockey," and I was like, "God damn it, this is my fault!" So I brought hockey into our lives, but he loves it too. So we've been to NHL's games in the States and stuff when we've ever been over. So he's a Florida Panthers man, because obviously the Performance Center is in Florida. So he's a Florida Panthers man. That's the first game he ever went to was an NHL game, which was Florida Panthers versus Blackhawks.
I see.
And we were over in Orlando at the time, so we drove down to the stadium and seen that. So I was delighted I got to see my Blackhawks, but he decided he was a Panthers fan from that day on, and I'm like, okie dokie. So yeah, that's, he proposed it because it's something that I love. So it was the perfect place to do it, bar a wrestling ring, which he thought was maybe a bit too cheesy. So he's like, well, I won't do it at a wrestling show, I'll do it at a hockey match.
Well, you guys are incredible. I'm also a very big fan of Wolfgang. He's done an incredible job at NXT UK. But, I've got to ask you this. Lots of people, there are critics everywhere. And lots of people, they blame NXT UK for sort of killing the British wrestling scene. How true or how untrue is that? Can you just, because you're so involved in this, your fiance is basically, NXT UK. So what is the truth? Let's just hear it for once and for all.
It's a strange one. I think a lot of people really said that because they weren't getting to see their favourites, the guys that got them into the wrestling, like independents on the UK, as much as they were before. Yeah. So I understand where the phrase has come from, but it's further from the truth. Like, that's what I'm saying. Always a work in progress is the British wrestling scene, because you have guys like that who end up going over, who have quite rightly busted their backside in order to get to get to a point where they're getting signed, and they completely deserve to be on the money and the training regime that they are getting now to get better. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that there's nobody left. Like, if you just think about it, when I talked about, even if you talk about it on a women's aspect, I was talking about the TNT locker room. I named 9 women that were in one locker room for one show. It's not that the scene is empty, it's just refilling. And it's now at a point where maybe people need to stop saying that it's dead. Maybe it's just a rejuvenation. It's like Doctor Who. Like, you had David Tennant, we're now moving in a different era. It's just rejuvenating. And it's really exciting. There's some incredible talents that are coming up from up and down the country. And it's just going to be this. There's going to be that point where people moan because they don't get to see their favourites every single weekend that they've grown accustomed to and they've made an alliance with.
Yeah.
But at the same time, those people should be proud of the fact that the guy that they looked up to has moved on and has been recognised for his talent. But at the same time, there's still this entire generation of people still to come through. It's not that it's dead, it's just rejuvenating. And the British scene is far from being dead. It's going to come back, and it's going to come back new. And especially after coronavirus, especially after the Speak Out movement, it's going to go, when we say life is never going to go back to normal, to what it was before, it's going to come back as something new. And it's going to come back even more exciting and more driven to prove those that went before us that we can just be as good as them, if not better. So they better keep up.
Absolutely. I love that. And Molly, I'm so sorry that I've taken so much of your time today. It's been incredible talking to you. And since you brought up the TLC match, and after your interview, I'm such a big fan, and I cannot wait to see you on TV. So I literally can't. So I have to ask you this question. Which promotion is the next on your radar? Is it NXT UK or is something else in your mind right now?
For me, of course, I'd be daft to say, no, I don't want it. Of course, NXT UK came up, that would be incredible. But at the same time, I am delighted with what I'm doing, and I'm delighted with where I've been so far. I never have thought that I would have wrestled for companies like ROH and stuff like that even a year ago. And I've done so much so far that I'm enjoying what I'm doing. But of course, NXT UK would be incredible. But at the same time, there's other people going to places like AEW, there's folk going to ROH, and there's folk just going to Japan. The idea for me, I'd love to go to Japan. I'd love to go to be over there to have the culture shock. Right. But literally, everywhere and anywhere that'll let me wrestle, I will wrestle. Be it the small community centre around the corner to a big arena, I will give you my all and I will do everything. And I want to be the best that I can be. So when the day comes that I decide to hang my boots up or give them to somebody else, then I'm going to be happy with what I've done and what I chose to do with my career, be it for a big promotion or be it for just myself. At the end of the day, I'm going to enjoy myself, and I want the future generations to feel like if you don't make it to WWE, it doesn't mean you're a failure. It just means you went on a different path.
Love that. Literally, Molly, you leave me speechless with your answers all the time. Not even joking. Incredible, Molly, truly incredible. I would honestly, give you a standing ovation right now, but I won't because I'm wearing shorts under my suit, so I will not. So
That's right.
I'm joking. But no, incredible, Molly. You are such an inspiration, and I know that you're going to rise bigger and bigger. You're just going to go places that, I can't wait to see you progress and grow in this career. I cannot wait for that. You can totally see that I'm totally fanboying over you right now. I'm pretty sure that after this interview, a lot more people are going to have the same reaction. You are incredible indeed, Molly. But before we sign off, do you have a message for any aspiring wrestlers, be it male or female, that are listening to you right now and, want to get into the wrestling business? Do you have any piece of advice for them?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to be a wrestler, said it already, find a good school. Get yourself in. When I'm saying get yourself in shape, like you can see from myself, it doesn't mean that you need to be ripped to an inch of your life and things like that. But you do need to be in a healthy state where you can do things like forward rolls. And I've honestly said to so many people, I've had countless amount of people come up to me saying, I'd love to be a wrestler. I just don't think I can do it. And my first answer has always been, can you do a forward roll? And then people go, yeah. I go, you've got more hope than you think. Like, you can do anything you want. You just need to be able to take criticism. So if someone says you did something wrong, then you take it on the chin and you try and get better. But yeah, you can do it. Like, don't think just because the people on your television have six packs and you don't, doesn't mean you can't be a good wrestler and you can't be good. You've just got to, you got to be realistic, but it's not an impossible thing. Meaning you lose one stone in order to do a forward roll to keep everybody safe, that's what you need to do. But it doesn't mean it doesn't mean the end. Like, don't think you can't do anything. You've got to at least try.
Love that, Molly. Thank you so much. And, I would, just like I said, that this was the last question, but I'm a curious guy. So I've got one last question, one final, I promise. All right.
Okay.
I was going through your Twitter earlier today, and I came across a real sweetheart, a beautiful girl on there. She is your 6-year-old dog, Henry. And I suppose
she's actually older than that. She's older than that. So they thought she was 6 at first, and then the vet said she's a wee old lady, actually. But yeah, my Henry.
Well, she's beautiful, and I read that she had a difficult life before she joined your family. So, would you like to tell us something about her?
So, so me and Wolfgang, we adopted little Henry, and when we first seen her, it was on a website. It was actually on a Facebook group called Paw Prints to Freedom. Right. And what they do is they go to countries, and the country we got Henry from was Romania. And when the funny thing is with her name, they actually thought she was a boy at first because she was so timid and hid in a corner of this cage. They couldn't really tell what gender she was, so they thought she was a boy. And then obviously it wasn't until like a month or so later after our first inquiries that they went, hey, Henry is actually Henrietta, but they've been calling her Henry for so long. That's just what she stuck with. We just stuck with she was Henry. But yeah, so we adopted her, and we got her from Paw Prints to Freedom, which is again this fantastic. They're on Facebook, they're charity, and they've been incredible. Like when we first got her, she actually had a tumour on her stomach. So we had to get an operation to get our mammary strip taken out. So basically the whole side of her taken out. And that was within the first couple of weeks of having her. So it was a major surgery, and they paid for it. They didn't just go, here's your dog, now we're away. They paid for it because they were like, you shouldn't have to have dealt with, that should have been something that was dealt with before it got to you. So they've been incredible, and they're doing incredible work. And their Facebook page will break your heart because you will want to save all the dogs, because I want to save all the dogs. The amount of times I'm like, this one's called Jack. Can we get you? Like, no. And I'm like, okay. But you do. But there's also an opportunity if you can. They also look for people to foster. So they are looking for people to even just take the dogs in and then get them to their forever home, because they want to save them from essentially countries that treat them like they're vermin and kill them and treat them terribly. So yeah, Henry has half a tail, she's got half an ear missing. On one of her ears, she's got a perfect circle where she's been tagged by something. She's terrified of fireworks, and supposedly it's quite a common thing for them to. The reason why a lot of Romanian rescues have half a tail is because they tie fireworks to their tails, and when they go off, it rips the tail off. Is stories that I've heard. So it's quite a common, but it's horrific what she's been through. But she's incredible. She's been exposed to just love, and she's been exposed to just a nice life. She's not a high, honest to God, she's the easiest dog in the world to look after. She has no idea what toys are. First time we got her, we tried to play one of those tug of rope things. She thought we were going to hit her, so she hid. So she doesn't know what toys are. And when she watches dogs run in the park after a ball, she looks at them very confused, why are you chasing that? But no, she's an absolute wee angel, and I'm so glad we brought her in, because yeah, it's just a weird sort of thing. She gives so much love back, but at the same time, we saved her, but at the same time, I'm just but you're the best. You've got such a cute face. But she is and if folk could go and even the page for Paw Prints to Freedom, and they do ask, sometimes they'll ask can you donate a couple of £, because they're trying to load a van full of dogs to bring back over to the UK in order to give them homes and stuff. So they are always looking for donations, and even they're looking for people to adopt the dogs, and they're looking for folk to foster them. And yeah, so if you're looking for a dog, and sometimes they're a bit less, I know there's places like dog rescue and stuff like that, and they have very strict rules in the sense of you need to have a garden, or you need to have this to get a dog. But they're looking for people that are just going to love the dog. They'll come and check your house and stuff and make sure you're a decent human being, and they'll check everything's fine. But if you've got a flat, but there's a shared area, you can get a dog that way. But they just want to rescue them, and yeah, I'm glad we rescued our wee hairy Romanian.
And the Henry has all these scars, but she has you, which is you and Wolfgang, and which is incredible. Just like the wrestling community has you and Wolfgang, and we're just so lucky to have you.
And this brings us to the end of our very special unfiltered raw interview with the incredible Molly Spartan. If you enjoyed the episode, don't forget to share it with your friends and family. And as always, we will be back with you next Tuesday and every other Tuesday after next Tuesday with more interviews and more stories straight from wrestlers' mouth from all across the globe. This is Wrassingh from the Wrassingh Show and Wrestling News, and I will see you next week.